y'all, it's Katie and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking all about how to safely rack, re-rack, and manipulate weights in the weight room. So let's go. So if you're in the weight room and you're starting to get heavier with your movements, but those dumbbells and weight plates and everything seem to be a lot harder to manipulate, and maybe you don't know how to move those weights safely, today we're going to talk about 4 different ways we can rack, re-rack, and move those weights around in a safe way. So first off, we're gonna take a look at dumbbells, and our first method here is actually unracking and re-racking the dumbbells on the rack. So if you're using heavier dumbbells than normal and you're worried about picking them up and putting them down and clipping your fingers and all this crud, then the easiest thing to do is pick them up one at a time, really focus on hand placement, posting up with the other hand, and pulling that dumbbell off the rack safely and controlled. Bring it straight to the floor if you need to. And once they're on the floor, you can deadlift them and move them to where you're working or whatever positions you need them in for your sets. But taking your time and being intentional with each dumbbell coming off the rack is going to be a very safe way to unrack those weights. And we're gonna do the same thing in reverse. When you put the dumbbells back, I like to prop it on my thigh first. So when I'm pulling it up, I'm gonna use both hands, prop it on the thigh, and then move your leg towards the rack and helping that dumbbell with the second hand to guide it into place on the rack, and making sure that you're not squishing any fingers in the process. So this way you're putting those dumbbells back in a very controlled and safe manner, especially after your set when you're all tired. That coordination control is super important. So once you have that heavy dumbbell out of the rack and you're ready to work, our second method here is going to be finding a goblet rack position. So let's say you're working on some heavy front squats and you need to rack that dumbbell up by your collarbone. Well, that's kind of a weird position to get into, especially if that dumbbell is pretty heavy. So instead of putting your dumbbell all the way on the floor and having to pick it up and manhandle it into that position, here's another trick. So let's take that in stages. First off, you're gonna take that dumbbell from the floor and put it on the bench, rotate it up to a vertical position. And from this vertical position, we can find that squat and then immediately put our hands in that goblet position and just pick it up off the bench from a goblet. And then between sets, you can just set it back down on the bench in a vertical position and then you're ready to go for the next set. So that one's a super simple way to do that. And our third method here is going to apply to both shoulder press and chest press with dumbbells. So here, if we're taking those heavier dumbbells over to a bench, we're going to stick them on our thighs first. And then from here, we're gonna kick one thigh up and then bring that dumbbell straight to the shoulder. So that's gonna help us get the weight up off our thighs and up into that front rack position. And then from here, we can just go to town on those shoulder presses. Or if we're going to lay back into a chest press, we can lay back with those dumbbells in that shoulder rack position. And then they're gonna be around the chest area when we lay back. And then you can go to town on your chest press. Now from the shoulder press, you can just bring those dumbbells right back down to the thighs and then rest there or set them down on the ground from there, up to you. But in that chest press, it's kind of hard to get back up into a seated position. So from the chest press, if you can't sit back up with your weights, just go ahead and bring them down to the floor, literally. And if you really can't reach that far to the floor, that's okay. It's only a small drop. So typically the gym flooring can take that little bit of pressure if you drop the dumbbells. And it won't make too much noise, hopefully, too. So it's always best to put them down nicely, but if you have to drop the dumbbells from the bench, that's okay. And our last method here is going to be on barbells. So here, especially when we're trying to add weight to the barbell and it's on the floor, that can get pretty difficult if your plates are all the same size, like these bumper plates. So one really quick hack is to grab a small, like 5 pound, 2.5 pound plate that's lying around and stick that under your largest or your most inside plate on the bar, roll it up onto it, and then from there, now you have an elevation so you can slide plates on super easily to add weight. Clamp it and then roll it back down, and then you're ready to go with that side. And same thing when you're unracking. You can just roll it on, unrack the weights, and then roll it back down. And now you only have a couple plates on there, which should be manageable enough to deadlift and take over to the bars on the rig. Or you can completely unload it on the ground. It's just a little finicky with those last couple plates. So I prefer to use the bars. And I'll throw in one more bonus tip here. This one has to do with clamping the bar. So specifically on things like bench press and maybe even things like squat, if you're lifting by yourself, like in a garage gym setting, and you're using a barbell with clamps, if you get stuck under that barbell and you're doing heavy weights, then with the clamps, those weights are going nowhere and you're stuck. And that's a bad situation to be in. So when you are working out by yourself or in a very low populated gym, or maybe you're working out with a bunch of elderly people around you and there's not a whole lot of big, strong people that could help you out from under that weight, a really good safety tip here is to leave the clamps off. So if I'm in a squat or if I'm in a bench press, especially a bench press, and that bar comes down and I can't get it back up, one thing you can do, I'm not gonna demo it on B-roll either because I don't wanna make a commotion in my gym, but one thing you can do is to bail out. So dumping one side where the weights slide off, and then that's going to jerk the bar the other way so the weights slide off that side. It's very dramatic, it's very loud, and it's kind of startling too because the bar will whip the other way very quickly to get the other side off. I wouldn't recommend it as a first resort. That's only if you're maxing or if you're in a dangerous situation, but it will save you from a lot of hassle if you're by yourself or in a situation where you can't get a spotter. Now, if you are in a gym where you have other people around you who are strong and who could help you get the weight off of you, that's totally fine. Leave the clamps on, especially if it's gonna cause a commotion in your gym. You know, it's not fun to do that method. Not fun at all. But if you can, leave the clamps on because it just creates a safer situation. In case you have some unbalance on the bar, it won't go dumping off either side, causing a commotion and maybe a safety situation for other people in the gym. So just use your common sense and pick whichever method is best for your situation. And that's all I've got for you today. If you have any other questions about lifting heavy things and how to do that in a safe and effective manner, go ahead and stick that down in the comments. And if you learned something, hit that like and subscribe down below so you can stay tuned to all of my content. And other than that, I will see you in my next video. Bye!